When you read a book or when you're watching a film, what makes characters truly unforgettable? For me, when I think about those characters, I think about characters like Paul Atreides from Dune. I think about characters like Ken Miles from Ford vs. Ferrari. And I even think about one of the best characters in all of cinema, Tars from Interstellar.
Sit down.
Now, in this video, I really want to dive into who my characters are for my novel. Not only what they do, but how they became who they are and who they were before this. It's really important for me to figure out lovable characters, characters that we can connect with, characters that have realistic fears, realistic flaws, motivations, and then putting that into real living pages. So I want to really break down these characters and invite you to give me feedback on it. As an illustrator, I'm not 100% sure or saying this is exactly how you do it. But for me, having characters established and having some narrative established helps the world building around me. So whether you're an illustrator, whether you're a writer, or just simply curious in the creative process, I would like to invite you into exploring this world and really show you who are the Patina Project characters. All right, here we go. So, first and foremost, I just kind of want to explain what's going on my screen. On the left side, I have PureRef open, which is just an image kind of saving template thing. I use this for everything. I use it for my artwork, everything. I put all my information on here. And then the other thing that I have open here is a program called Ellipsis that I just found this week. So I rotated a lot between Microsoft Word and I started using this. And I kind of like both of them. So I'm trying to figure out if it's a good idea to use both softwares. So Ellipsis is just kind of a typing software, and it's really cool because you can actually share your writings with other people and you can collaborate on it. So that's the reason that I did this, is just so in the future, if I want to collaborate with somebody, this might be a good way to do it. So what I'm going to do today is I'm going to talk a little bit about the main characters in my story. There are a lot of them because this story spans so much time. And I really want to make sure that every single one is kind of built out and relatable. So if you have any suggestions or if there's a character in this story that you relate with, let me know in the comments. That way I know that I'm headed in the right direction with this one. So even if there's one that you don't connect with and you're like, I got some ideas for that, I'm open to hearing that. So this is all a creative process, and I'm really just trying to learn how to do this and how to build out my story. So the first thing here to note is that each character changes depending on the timeline of the story. Like I said, this story spans many, many years. If I had to put a number on it right now, I'd say the story spans about 30 years in total, but we get fragments of it throughout the novel. So the first thing that I have here is just kind of a breakdown of the characters. I'm going to be typing some stuff in as it comes, just so I can share other details with you guys. But there are also some characters that are redacted. And the reason they're redacted is because I haven't come up with a name for them yet. It's not a secret that these characters are in the story. But if you have any name suggestions, I love to hear them because I am horrible with coming up with names. So the first person on this list, and I have reference images of people that kind of inspires me. So I pull up a picture of the person that is going to kind of be the model for my character in terms of visual appearance, just so you guys can get an idea of who they are. So the first person on this list is someone named Abba. So Abba, I'll just kind of read through this so you guys can understand. She has an urgency to get off of Earth, which is becoming more difficult after this character, redacted one, no name yet, dies, and his son, redacted two, no name yet, takes over. But her final act is to get her family onto the last ship to Mars. So some characteristics about Abba. So she's an older woman who has been placed in charge of placing settlers on Mars. So she's on Earth, and her job is just to start sending people to this terraformed planet. And she was selected after the failure of the Patina Project decades before her. There was a character before this who rushed the project and ended up creating chaos on Mars. So this name is not supposed to be here. I don't know why that's on there. So let me just take that off. So this past character rushes the project, sends people to a world that is pretty much uninhabitable, and just a sequence of events starts to build out. And that's how I get the first 7 factions of Mars, is through those events that happened before the actual Patina Project novel started. So again, Abba is on Earth. She's in charge of sending settler pods to the Red Planet, and she has high education, is well known around the world as the person in charge of saving humanity. So when I was building out these characteristics, I looked up a ton of different references as to how do I tackle this? What do people need to know? How do I make them believable? So I found a couple of templates, and I'll put those in the description so you guys can check them out. But I kind of just took bits and pieces of ones that I really liked because some of them didn't make sense, right? So there's no like official occupations on Mars, so people weren't really trying to have jobs. They weren't trying to follow a daily schedule. So that's the first thing is I picked and choose different templates. In terms of physical appearance for Abba, she is a small, slender, older woman with silver, long, curved hair and green eyes. She does not have anything distinguishable like birthmarks, but she's very professional and very well dressed despite humanity crumbling on Earth. So the mission here, get people off of Earth and into Mars, but she's a representative and she's a person in charge of saving everyone. So she still takes her physical appearance very seriously, despite there being, um, you know, all kinds of chaos, despite there being hunger and plagues and stuff like that on Earth. So continue on with the story. Here's where we're at. She's also very direct with her intentions and with the way that she conducts herself. So she is constantly adjusting and managing people. She's very micromanagement, right? She wants everything done correctly. And she's just very, very serious about her job because there's such a heavy weight on her shoulders. And her determination is to make it work, not only for humanity, but for her family. So she has a motivation behind saving humanity. She wants to make sure that her family gets to Mars and escapes the crumbling society of Earth. So that's the first character on here. The second character is extremely important to the story because this character is the reason that things start to happen on Mars. So this character is Colton. So Colton arrived on Mars at the age of 17 with his 2 younger siblings and the cold body of his mother. So although he doesn't know it, let me scoot this over so you guys can see it a little bit better. Although he doesn't know it yet, Colton will become the leader of a faction called the Olympians. And they are on Mars. So Colton is 17, arrives on Mars, and then over time creates a faction called the Olympians. And he is the man that unites all the savage factions of Mars. So when he arrives on Mars, there isn't much society and civilization. So he is the big reason as to societies being created and some sort of peace being united. Um, he does not manage to include one faction, and this faction is just the complete opposite of what Colton believes. They have their own ideas of what Mars should look like. They have their own ideas of what life should look like. So that is the opposing faction to the other ones, and ultimately they're acting as the opposite side of Colton. So I left the name redacted because I don't really want to spoil that part yet. Of course, you guys are getting insider looks into all this world building, so you will know eventually what's going on. But for now, let's leave that name redacted. Colton is also a very strong young man. He has copper red hair and very light complexion. He has freckles on his face, and his posture really demands attention when he enters a room. So he's a big guy. Colton was born on Earth, but he lives on Mars and eventually goes from being a settler on Mars to being seen as a god. So think of your like very heroic, stoic guy, uh, the guy that everybody looks up to. Almost like if you're thinking about Captain America in the Avengers, right? Like he is the example of what a leader is. Going on here, at his older age, so I also have an older version of this image, not of this exact image, but things that are inspiring me of what my character is going to look like. So this is kind of where I'm going with Colton. So I'll kind of leave this picture up. The other one's a side profile. So at his older age, Colton has slicked back peppered hair, stubbly beard, and even at his old age, his presence is still commanding. So despite there being time passing by and despite him aging so quickly, when he enters a room, everybody pays attention. So by this age, he's already the leader of Mars. He's already established something very, very important. And he's an effective communicator, unlike me on YouTube. He has a very deep, soothing voice. He has charm. He has just this demeanor that people gravitate towards. So people like to be around him. He's super strong. He's just been a leader since the day that he arrived on Mars. And I like to think of it as like he was forced to be a leader, right? So with the events that happened on the ship when he got to Mars, he was forced to grow up and take over and lead his family. So I also have these little descriptions about their aesthetic. So right here, Colton's aesthetic. And what I mean by the aesthetic is what kind of armor these characters wear. Because a lot of time these characters are going to be wearing some sort of armor to protect them in Mars. And I think it's important to know how they look with their armor and without the armor so that we can connect with these characters. We always see characters with armor and we're like, "Oh, that's a cool design. That's an awesome thing." But I like to uncover what's under it and really tell you who the person is too. So Colton is the leader, and he has adorned himself with the colors orange and steel. So Colton's a peaceful leader, but when someone oversteps, he becomes this unstoppable beast, right? And that's kind of why he was able to help unite Mars because of his dedication, because he's not afraid. There's absolutely zero fear in this guy. So on one hand, he's super peaceful, great to be around, but if you cross a line, he will turn into just this insane soldier that just has has no tolerance for disrespect or anything like that. His armor is going to be influenced by knights and Vikings, so most of the armor inside of the story is because of that aesthetic, right? Knights and Vikings with a mixture of furs, a mixture of steel, um, and that's exactly what Colton has. So he's dark steel character with fur and really elegant amongst people. So I will be tackling the designs later on. I already have some sketches of what I've been doing for them for over the past few years, but I really want to nail down those designs just so that we know, like, oh, that's Colton. Like, there's no question about which character's which. The next character on here, and kind of a minor character in the story, is Colton's mother. So Colton's mother and the three siblings, so Colton and his two younger siblings, all arrive on Mars. And the thing is, when they arrive, there isn't even time for her to step out of the landing pod. So the whole thing begins with her hiding her children on the landing pod. and there's just this massacre going on when they arrive. So the reason that I added this to the story is because it actually has a ripple effect on the three characters and then on the villain characters eventually. So let me just go through this so you guys can kind of see. Um, so the mother and and the three siblings hide. She will do anything to make sure that they survive, and her children watch her death as they follow orders to stay hidden. So there's just this traumatic event that happens where the three kids have to witness people dying inside the pods and they can't do anything about it. Her children watch this happen, and but Colton tries to fight back. Right, he naturally has that leader thing come out of him at an early age, but as he tries to protect his mother and protect his siblings, he gets very injured by codes. I call it codes, right? Because I don't have an idea of that character's name, but there's basically children soldiers. So very young kids, very like teenagers who are easily manipulated, and they choose to join somebody's army and work for them. And these people just happen to be on the landing pod with them. So characteristics for mother. So she's a tall woman with burgundy red hair. So her hair's gonna be a little bit darker than this image shows, and very light complexion. Again, matching kind of Colton's complexion. And mother is a daughter of Abba. So Abba, the grandmother, and then mother is her daughter, and then the three siblings are her kids. So the three siblings, again, in case you haven't seen them yet, Colton, the oldest, Viridia is the middle child, and then Lavian is the youngest. So personality traits for mother is she's a very quiet and composed person. She is very observant and prefers to be hidden in the room. There is some typos in here. Forgive me. I've been just typing stuff up. And she'd rather not have attention come towards her. So she's very warm, very caring. So very lovable person. And she's just, she didn't inherit that workaholic personality from her mom, right? She's more of a stay-at-home mom and takes care of her kids. But she is a beacon of light for her kids, and she cherishes them to the very end. So very important to note that the personality of the sibling's mother. She's very loving, very caring, very protective of her kids, but she's not a workaholic. So the next character, and I don't know if I'm going to break this video into two yet. We'll see how long this goes. But the next character is Viridia. So Viridia is the middle child. So she arrives on Mars at the age of 14, and she's very much like her mom in terms of like her demeanor, right? She's very quiet and very just separated from the room sometimes. So, quick description: Verdia gives everything up in order to help Colton unite the Patina settlers, and she also dedicates her life to bringing Lavian. So, Lavian has two names, Lavian and Maros, and there's a reason for that, which I'm not going to bring up yet. But when I say Lavian and Maros, it's referring to the youngest sibling. And that's kind of where Viridia's journey starts. She begins getting very jealous of Colton, and the main reason that she's jealous of Colton is because Lavian is looking up to him as a leader. So despite her giving up her life to raise him and to help Colton, she's often overlooked, right? Just like a middle child, most of the time they're often overlooked and they're kind of do their own thing, at least from what I've seen. Later, she turns when she's approached by a group called the Forgotten. So the Forgotten want her to lead Mars. So characteristics here. Viridia arrives at the age of 14. She is much like her mother in terms of demeanor. She's a quiet person, but definitely not shy. So there's a difference between being quiet and being shy. And she's just quiet, but she is secretly very cunning and very good at problem solving. So she comes up with plans, which is why she will later become Colton's tactician, so tactician and planner, um, when he moves to unite Mars. So Viridia is secretly like a grandmother. She's very strong and able to control others. She's also very envious of her siblings and often feels forgotten. Catch that? Forgotten as the middle child. So Verda gave up most of her life to help care for Lavian. She helps raise him and mold him alongside Colton. And Verdia gave Lavian her best years and later grows to regret it. So she's very much a person who, you know, wishes that she was cherished a little bit more by her siblings because of everything that she's done for them. So continuing here, she is very tall, very strong. She has yellowish green eyes that almost hypnotize others. So I really try to focus on color here because I think color is super, super effective for telling a story. So that's why I chose kind of like a greenish yellow tint to her eyes so that she can look into someone and then just kind of create doubt in them. She has golden complexion with long brown hair, and people grow uneasy around her. Like they're just not too comfortable when she appears because she is very stern, very serious, and gives people a sense of insecurity. Again, connecting to her eyes, right? She's very well spoken. I put British accent just because I thought it'd be kind of interesting, but I probably have to give the other two a British accent as well. Um, but she picked that up from her significant other, which is redacted right now. So that's the reason that she has that accent. Um, I even thought about creating some sort of accent or something like that for Mars, but we'll see. I don't want this to be too weird. And then her aesthetic. So Viridia lurks in the shadows with her black and green visor. She wears elegant flowing clothing that waves in the wind. She has a dark aesthetic and adorns herself with obsidian bones found in the deserts of Mars. Her clothing is sinister with accents of dried blood. So, what I mean by accents of dried blood is a very velvety burgundy color on the inside of her clothes, but the outside is all dark and green. The color scheme that I'm kind of going with is like a very deadly color, just because, again, she makes people very uneasy when she's around. So, now we get to the main character. The main character in this story is Maros slash Labian, and he's a very important character. And I found kind of images of people that I kind of like certain features about them to kind of tell his story. So Lavian or Maros is super arrogant. So he's kind of that teen who always puts his family in danger, is always getting in trouble. He makes super dumb mistakes, but is extremely confident in himself. So when he makes mistakes, he doesn't own up to them. He just kind of waves it off and says, like, well, I'm kind of like the chosen one, which is the big thing about his story. He is seen as the chosen one to rule once Colton steps down. So they're kind of passing the mantle, right, from Colton to the younger brother. And that's just the reason that Lavian is so arrogant. He feels entitled. So, um, he is the reason for Colton's death in the story. So, Colton does die in the book, and the whole reason is because of Lavian. So, again, he doesn't take responsibility for what he does, and it ends up costing his brother's life. And that causes Lavian to become an outcast in Mars. So, he betrays his friends, he betrays his family in a moment of fear, but a different character named Ironsight remains by his side even after all of that. So, a few characteristics for Lavian. Again, the youngest sibling and arrived at Mars at the age of 6. Lavian was a sweet kid as a child, but he would always get in trouble thinking he knew best, right? So, even early on in his age, we can see that already. As a kid, he gave Viridia a number of headaches, right, with all of his antics. In his teens, Labian shows immense potential and helps his brother govern Mars. So his brother actually gives him more responsibility in hopes that he grows up and starts to learn from his mistakes. But it quickly goes to his head. So he really starts to begin to act kind of like a tyrant. So he's given a squad of people where he has certain duties that he has to fulfill for Colton, but he treats them like a tyrant. Like he talks down to them, he treats them like they're nothing, and is always insulting them. Labian has a team of friends that he orders around, but his stubbornness and his attitude land him in big trouble in the story. So, time and time again, he goes against Colton's orders and he feels like he should have more freedom since he's one day going to take over and rule Mars. So, we quickly see like he's already a very bad combination, right? He's already this arrogant person who feels entitled and that wants to rule Mars. So, that's a recipe for disaster right there, right? We already have a young tyrant coming through. He reminds me a lot of a character in the series Vikings. Um, his name was it Ivar? I think it was Ivar. He was like the youngest sibling who just he did just indescribable things in the series. I don't want to spoil anything. Spoiler alert. I should put something that's just spoiler alert. Um, Continuing with Lavian, he's super slender and tall, well over 6 foot, but he does not have the commanding presence that his brother does. Even though he's tall, he doesn't have that aura when he enters a room. Um, Lavian's sleek, slender, and has a gaze similar to his sister's, so he has a very like negative, kind of uneasy gaze. He has super dark hair, and I'll kind of show you guys. I chose Timothy Charlemagne, right, as like his teen years to kind of represent what I'm thinking about. So super dark hair, crazy dark stare, and he's super arrogant and sees himself as a natural born leader. So the big thing here that I want to point out is that he sees himself as naturally born as a leader, but he was also witness to Colton being a sweet person and growing into a leader. So here's the difference between them. Colton had to grow into a leader, and Lavian feels entitled and feels that he is born a leader. So in a way, he sees himself as a little bit higher than Colton, although he hasn't achieved anything yet. Um, the other thing here is Colton was forced to grow up. Again, Lavian was born to rule. At his old age, Lavian is unrecognizable. So at his old age is where we start the story. And here's the image that I kind of chose for him. So you just cannot tell who he is in the beginning of the story anymore. So his body is beaten, his face is a memory of its old self. He has facial deformations from battle and radiation and suffering. So basically his appearance is telling us this guy has been through some stuff, right? He's super easy to spot out, but the thing is that no one knows who he actually is. So that's what it says here. No one knows that Lavian lurks around the crowds who can no longer recognize him. And I find that to be super important because his location in the book is actually the location where all of Colton's followers are. So they all think that he's dead, but he's secretly lurking around them. His aesthetic. So Lavian has a cloak that dances in the wind, much like his sister, right? But he has a cloak and a hood. Very brown camoed clothing. He kind of matches these characters called the beggars in the story, which are kind of like prisoners or kind of like homeless or have nothing to kind of give to society. So he kind of matches their look because he feels he has nothing to give. But his helmet is a white helmet with engravings, which was actually a gift from Colton. So Colton gifted him this white helmet with very, very detailed engravings with a lavender visor. So the reason I chose lavender is because the color lavender shows up time and time again in the story. And I just wanted I want color to play a big role in who these characters are. So that's the reason for his name is Lavian is supposed to kind of be a call to lavender, and then Maros is supposed to be a call to Mars. So if I say Maros very quick, like Maros, it starts to sound to Mars, right? So I chose two colors that are opposite, not completely opposite because they're not complements, but I wanted to show the fiery demeanor that he had as a teen compared to his kind of quiet and regretful thoughts that he has now as an older person. So, lavender visor, white helmet, and his helmet kind of creates segments of what he sees. So, his when he's looking at somebody, the purple part of his visor kind of creates like a fly effect, right? Where like you can see different things at once. And that's meant to be a call out to the fragments of his memories and his nightmares when he sleeps. So I've taken all these things into consideration to really think about, why are they these colors? Why are they acting the way they do? Why are they influenced by certain things? So the main three siblings, Colton, Viridia, and Lavian, are the main characters of the story. Before ending the video, I just want to say thanks for following me on this journey. I know we're really, really early on, but it really does mean a lot to have you guys watch the channel, watch these videos, get to learn these characters that I am creating for my story. If there's a character that you really like or a character that you really connect with, let me know in the comments. Give me some ideas. Tell me, who are you most excited to kind of see develop and see their story? If you enjoyed it, please just give me a quick like, and I hope to see you guys on the next one. See ya.